I was about 12 or 13 years old at the time, in the late 1960s. We lived in the Midwest in the farming town surrounded by cornfields and beef cattle farms. We intended we attended a church in a nearby smaller town that was about 20 miles from our town. Almost all cornfields and cows and scattered farmhouses along with the two-lane road. One day on the way to the church, my dad was driving. My mom was in the front seat and I was in the back, driving miles of cornfields. I saw someone standing by the corn miles from the house. As we drove closer, I saw it. It was Lee, my friend from church. Alongside of the road was a ditch, about 3 feet deep and 4 feet wide. For the ample rain the area got. The side of the ditch next to the field had a small hill of dirt about 4 feet above the road, like a levee, so the rain on the field would stay in the field and not run into the road. Lee was standing on the hill in front of the fence with his back to the corn and facing the road. He was few years older than I. He just stood there looking at the horizon, not looking down the road, motionless, black pants and white shirt. I told my parents that Lee was standing by the road. We got to church and at the service Lee's parent looked distraught. The minister made an announcement that Lee had just gotten a motorcycle and he has not been seen for 2 days and his parents were worried. My mom and dad looked at me and told me not to say a thing. After the service, I went to Lee's parents and told them what I saw. They were shocked at my parents not stopping to help their son. My mom explained that they did not see Lee, so they did not stop. They insisted to follow us home and stop where I saw their son. I wasn't sure I could, as it all was same mile after mile of corn. It looked like the same. As we drove home ahead, I saw him again, just standing there. I pointed him out, but my parents did not see him and drove by again. I opened the car door and knowing that my dad would slow down and I got out of the car. He came to the stop. Lee's parents pulled out right behind us. My dad was mad and told me to get back in the car, but I kept pointing to Lee and telling him there he is. He's standing over there. But they did not see him. I had to run back on the road a bit to get where Lee was standing, both parents following me. My dad was mad and Lee's parents got confused. I finally got the spot. I was standing in front of Lee. He was still on the road, still standing on the hill of dirt about 4 feet higher than I stood on the road. He was looking forward, not at any of us, eyes open, not moving a bit, not responding as I spoke to him. My dad was really mad and ordered me to get to the car. Lee's parent asking, "Where is he?" The ditch by the side of the road was full of tall weeds, maybe 3 feet high. He stepped in the ditch and moving into the weeds, and we could see the handlebars of a motorcycle. My dad was furious, pulling the bike around and grabbing something. He found Lee's body and the bike hidden in the weeds in the ditch, just below where I could see the Lees plain as day standing. Lee's parents were holding each other, gasping as my dad tried to free Lee from the bike. But he said, "Lee's gone." I turned from Lee and looked at his parents sobbing, and then I heard Lee say in a very sad and slow voice, "I am sorry, Mom." I turned back and Lee was still just standing, staring out at the horizon. I told his mom what he said, and both parents cried. People driving by stopped and helped. Someone got the sheriff, but Lee was long dead. My mom had me get back in our car, and I sat for probably over an hour until we drove back home. My parents knew I saw spirits since I was a child. They seen some too. It was accepted in our family that we did not talk about it to others. My mom would at times take me to the spiritualist churches that had mediums. They were open to metaphysical teachings. The rest of the day was uneventful for us, though said. That night I was doing homework for a school. The next day, and there was a knock at the door. It was a sheriff and the other man in uniform that wanted to talk to me. They did not believe I saw his spirit and accused me of running off the road, killing him. And that's how I knew where the body was. I was just a kid, I could not drive. I did have a bicycle, but never would ride out that far. The man returned 2 more times asking me the same question. Later, they would return and only talk to my parents. Nothing more happened from that day. But at school, I was getting harassed by some students about what I did to Lee. Lee went to another school than I did, but it was a farming community and many knew his family. Until I graduated high school now, and I would be accused of his death. Now, over 50 years later, I think of seeing Lee standing there, hear his voice, watching my dad struggle to help Lee, and tell that he was dead. 2 weeks ago, I heard from a classmate from my school, but he was older than me. He said to me, "Parker, when are you going to come clean on what happened to Lee? All this time, and still some hold me responsible." I think it was a gift from Lee that I would see him and tell where the accident would happen. The tall weeds would not reveal his body until winter. When the weeds would die down, he stood a few feet from his body and gave a final message to his mother. I think the universe arranged this blessing for me to see him. I have not seen him since. After high school, I left the community and have not returned even for a class reunion. When I heard from my old mate accusing me of harming Lee, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I had forgotten about how tormented I was about this, and when I was young, and now today I'm an old man, and it still hurts that people think I harmed Lee. I was his last friend on earth. He showed me where his body was, and it gave me a message to his mother. I do feel honored to help him finish his final task on earth, but it hurts that the other people still accuse me of doing something I would never do to anyone.